This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter. I'm welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. Ironically enough, if you watched the Sports Catastrophe Birthday Boy episode, then you know that Raven Berry came from SMU. Well, by some strange coincidence, SMU also was part of one of the biggest stories of February 27th. And that was 1987, the day that football partially died in the Dallas area university. So I'm going to take you through, hopefully, a Cliff's Notes of SMU football scandal, but I'm probably going to draw on and on and on. But anyway, the SMU football scandal was an incident in which the Mustangs football program at Southern Methodist University in Dallas was investigated and punished for massive and repeated violations of NCAA rules and regulations for many years. The biggest violation was the maintenance of a slush fund to pay players and their families under the table to make sure they come to SMU to play. As an indirect result of SMU's repeated violations, the NCAA decided to make rule changes to stiffen penalties for multiple rule violations over a certain period. Basically, the death penalty, canceling a school season. Following the 86 season, the Mustangs screwed up again, and their football team was not allowed to take part in 87. In 1988, SMU was not allowed to play home games. However, they decided to self-impose another year ban, thinking that they couldn't field a viable team. Unfortunately, the 1989 squad was not that much good. And the death penalty ruined SMU because they only had one winning season over the next 20 years. They didn't make a bowl game until 2009, and didn't even make the national ranking until 2019. But thankfully, it's the only time that the NCAA has canceled an entire season. SMU was not a powder puff school. The football team won the 1935 national championship, 10 Southwest Conference titles, and had been to 11 bowl games. Many All-Americans, including a Heisman winner, Doak Walker, in 1949. From 81 to 84, SMU had a great era. There were 41, 5, and 1. They could have won the 1982 national title because they were the only undefeated team in the nation. However, they ended up tying Arkansas on the last game of the season. But they decided to settle for the tie rather than risk a 2-point convert that could have won the contest, because they wanted to win the spot in the Cotton Bowl, which the Southwest Conference champion always got. And weird enough, SMU actually played their games at Texas Stadium, where the Cowboys play. So SMU was actually the second smallest school in the Southwest Conference, with an enrollment of 9,000 students in 1986. The only other school in the Southwestern Conference to actually be smaller? Rice. Yes, Rice. Terrible. From the 50s onward, the university found it difficult to compete against schools that were double or triple their size. Prior to the 1980s, SMU only had 9 winning seasons since 1949. The effort to keep up with the bigger SWC schools led SMU to stray close to the ethical line and going over it. While SMU was not the only Southwest Conference school to be sanctioned for recruiting violations, in fact, at one point, 5 of the 9 schools were on some form of probation. The violations were egregious. If you can find it, watch the ESPN 30 for 30 called Pony Exce about the SMU thing. I have it on my computer. It is awesome. It's great. So SMU was slapped with 5 probations between 74 and 85, which is hard to believe. Basically, the slush payment started. In 1978, SMU found a up-and-coming coach by the name of Ron Meyer. Gee, I wonder if I heard that name before. If you remember the Sports Catastrophe Birthday Boy, I mentioned Ron Meyer. But yeah, I guess it was the weirdest thing and all that. I'm trying to look for a book. Here we go. The Worst of Sports. I think this talks about the SMU stuff in detail. Yep. So yeah, I like these books. So anyway, Ron Meyer came in. He looked bad. He decided to assemble a recruiting class. His first major recruit was Emmanuel Tolbert, who was a running back from Little Rock, Arkansas. Fuck, why did you have to take away someone from Arkansas? Let Arkansas have this guy. Tolbert was made into a wide receiver, and he was great for SMU and for the Toronto Argonauts. But the recruiting strategy was aggressive, pursuing all the best football players from Texas. There were a lot of people that couldn't come in the ethical way. So anyway, my strategy actually helped out as the Mustangs qualified for a bowl game in 1980. With a high-power running offense led by Craig James and Eric Dickerson. Unfortunately, Dickerson was alleged to have received a new gold Trans-Am part of in exchange for his recruitment to SMU. Eric Dickerson was a fantastic NFL runner. Let's not say that. He was fantastic, and he's a great guy. In the 1980 Holiday Bowl, SMU took on BYU in one of the greatest college football games of all time. SMU actually had a major lead on BYU in the fourth quarter, but choked, and BYU won 46-45. That made the Holiday Bowl more enjoyable for people. Unfortunately, after this, SMU was hit with multiple probations. They were given a bowl ban from the 1981 bowl season. Despite this, the team won the SWC championship and was actually fifth in the AP poll. Ron Meyer resigned to take the New England Patriots job, which then went to Raymond Berry in 1984. His successor, Bobby Collins, picked up right where Meyer left off. And in 82, the Mustangs were unbeaten and won the 83 Cotton Bowl, which ended up giving them number 2 in the final polls. Collins would lead SMU to 2 more bowls in 2 seasons. A loss in the 83 Sun Bowl and the win in the 84 Aloha Bowl, 84-85, if you will. The Mustangs won a share of the Southwestern Conference championship in the latter year, making it 3 conference titles in 4 years. However, there was a lot of problems. One of the first players to really have issue that I talk about with the recruiting problems is Stoppard, who was an offensive lineman from Pennsylvania, who gave an oral commitment to the U of Pitt. And he actually told investigators that he and his family received money from boosters and assistant coaches to renege on the commitment signed with the Mustangs. Staubridge would have nagging injuries and leave SMU in 85 to come back to Pittsburgh. He wanted to come back to the University of Pitt, but they didn't give him a scholarship, so he decided to enroll in Temple. Well, at Temple University. Sadly, though, he got injured in a car crash, and it ended his football career. The NCAA decided to come down hard on SMU. The school could not grant any football scholarships for the 85 season, and only 15 would be available for 1986. And the Mustangs received a 2-year postseason ban. Of course, the on-field performance suffered because of that. They were the third-ranked team entering the 85 season. SMU fell huge after being blown out by Arizona. And then after losing to Baylor, they were 0-2. The team did finish above 500 at 6-5, which might have got them a bowl chance, but of course they got banned. They started off great in the 86 season. They were 5-1, but sadly they failed. They ended up 6-5. They got crushed by Notre Dame. They got shut out by Arizona State, and they were shut out by Arkansas. Woo! Yahoo! Sweet! However, things would get a lot worse. In 1986, a producer at the Dallas ABC affiliate, WFAA, which actually did some good coverage about the JFK assassination and Lee Harvey Oswald death. You should watch it on YouTube. Got a tip about some further wrongdoing at SMU, which led to David Stanley, who was a linebacker. He was part of the same recruiting class as Stoppard in 1983. Stanley was also dealing with substance abuse problem that was progressively worse, and basically he couldn't crack the starting lineup, and basically he got cut from the football team. Stanley actually wanted to get his degree, but basically the school rescinded the remainder of his scholarship. And basically, he decided to talk to them, the people on the affiliate. He said that SMU paid him $25,000 to sign with the Mustangs in '83 and continued paying him monthly while he played for his team. His mother and father were also given money. And of course, if that was true, then SMU would be still paying players after sure the NCAA payments had stopped. And basically, there was a new set of rules that would jeopardize SMU. NCAA called an emergency meeting in New Orleans in the wake of SMU's problems in '85. Deal with rash violations that other schools went through in the late '70s and early '80s. They made new rules to combat the problem, including putting the death penalty and all that. The NCAA shuttered a season twice in its history. Kentucky men's basketball in '52-53 and the Southwestern Louisiana, or I believe what they call, are they called Louisiana Lafayette now? Southwestern Louisiana. The Louisiana Lafayette Raging Cajuns. Their basketball team for a couple of years in the '70s. Six schools voted against the death penalty. Texas, Houston, and SMU were the main ones. So there was a lot of risk in all that. So anyway, yeah. So basically, if by running a story, the Dallas Times-Herald, basically they could risk advertising revenue because of the dual ownership of the newspaper and TV station. However, WFAA said they had to go through with it. They gave polygraph tests to both David and Don Stanley, and they passed the test. So they were being legitimate. So basically, in October, Dale Hansen, the main sports guy, met with Collins, the football coach, the SMU athletic director Bob Hitch, and the administrative assistant Henry Lee Parker, and confronted them about them. Hansen actually was in possession of a pair of envelopes that were allegedly sent to Stanley and his family with money inside. One of the envelopes had damning evidence. The envelope addressed to Mrs. Harley Stanley not only came from the recruiting office, but the initials HLP were printed on black ink on the upper left-hand corner in the same handwriting that the home address was written in. Furthermore, the postmark was October 4th, 1985. Basically, HLP, Henry Lee Parker, denied everything and was given the envelopes, all that. Basically, Parker looked at it and said that the letters were printed by hand on the envelope, and says that, no, I write, I don't print. When pressed the second time, Parker said it couldn't come from, because it says, I don't write that way. But Hansen said that's when they had him, because basically, here's the thing though. Since all Hansen had to go on was the word of Stanley and his mother, he could not have known for sure if there was money in the envelope. In fact, Hansen never actually mentioned money when he produced the envelopes, asking if there was any correspondence. And basically, Hansen said that was the defining moment. All Parker had to say was, I'm glad you asked, I sent him an insurance form, and we would have had to start all over again. That's what he also said in the ESPN doc. Basically, that, he could have just said, I sent him some information or something, not even money. And then, they would have had it. After the polygraph test, it was basically everything looked good. There was one damning piece of evidence. Parker submitted a handwriting sample for analysis, and the experts said that basically they got it. So basically, Hansen's report was aired as part of a news special on WFAA. It was also revealed that Stanley talked to the NCAA, and then an NCAA investigation was underway. 2 days later, the Dallas Morning News said that starting Tanya Everett Reese was living rent-free in a Dallas apartment, and the rent was paid by a booster. So basically, professors submitted a petition calling for the end of athletics at SMU. The SMU Board of Governors Chairman Bill Clements, who actually regained his seat as Texas governor just a few weeks earlier, said that the school would tighten its admission standards for all athletes, and basically they could drop football entirely to restore the school's integrity. Unfortunately, the NCAA basically found out all these things with the boosters and all of that. The fact of the matter is that if you watch the documentary, is that basically the SME boosters said they had to pay the kids because they gave their verbal word that they still had to pay them and all of that. Because there was a feeling that if they stopped the payments, then basically then the players would have the right and blow the whistle. People said that basically these smart mouth kids, you better whack them across the mouth. Oh, fuck that shit. So anyway, yeah, there was a lot of problems. Bill Clements, after being sworn in as governor, did admit he knew about the slush fund in 1984. And Clements said that the board decided to agree to phase out the fund at the end of the 86 season, since the members felt duty-bound to honor previous commitments to players who had already been promised payments, because they had a payroll to meet and all that. So yeah. But then the death penalty hit hard. The nature was huge. February 6, 1987 is when SMU faculty athletics representative delivered a report to the NCAA. Said that the school should be had probation until 1990. During this period, SMU would only allow 6 assistant coaches, and 4 of them would be off-campus recruiting. It was recommended that SMU's ban from bowl games and live TV be extended until 1989, and SMU decided to drop 2 non-conference games from the schedule. Unfortunately, the infractions committee decided not to do it, and basically SMU was given the death penalty and all that. So basically, everything was canceled. The 87 season and the 88 home schedule will be cut down. However, SMU did cooperate, and it actually saved them from the full death penalty, because SMU would have had their football shut down until 1989 and lost their right to vote at NCAA conventions. However, SMU did give themselves an extra year and all that. So yeah, there's like no football and all that. But some good news with some people is that a full release was granted to every player on the team, allowing them to transfer to another school without losing eligibility. Because when you transfer, you have to lose a year of eligibility, I think. A lot of people said they were considering going elsewhere. There were a lot of recruiters trying to travel to SMU to persuade players to transfer to their schools. So yeah, things would look bad. SMU did cancel the 88 season. All that. So it ruined a lot of people and all that. There was a lot of Bill Clements, who was still Texas governor, apologized for his role in continuing the payments in March 87, said that they reluctantly and comfortably decided to continue payments because they had to honor previous commitments. We should have stopped the payments immediately. He faced calls for his impeachment. But Clements didn't get impeached. He did not run for re-election in 1990. Bobby Collins was not sanctioned for anything. His reputation still was ruined, and he almost went to Mississippi State in 1990 to be their coach, but Jackie Sherrill got this one. Sean Stoppard and David Stanley, the players at the center of the scandal, never recovered from drug addiction. Stoppard was found dead in his Pittsburgh apartment from a cocaine overdose at age 29, and David Stanley never emerged and died in his sleep at age 41 in 2005. SMU would come back to football in 1989 under Coach Forrest Gregg, a former SMU alum. Forrest Gregg basically was a key coach. He liked Cincy, and he coached Cincy to a Super Bowl appearance, and then Green Bay did all right. But the team was made of freshmen and walk-ons, basically undersized and underweight. Greg was actually taller and heavier than all but a few players on the squad. They didn't really have offensive linemen. All that. And the games would actually be moved to Allenby Stadium, a 23,000-seat on-campus facility in 1926. It had to be heavily renovated to meet IA standards. SMU hadn't played any games on campus at all since 1948. The Mustangs played at Allenby until 1994 when they moved back to the old Cotton Bowl Stadium to play. And then in 2000, they went to Gerald J. Ford Stadium, which is not named after the former president. The scandal ruined the team. Basically, the football team was terrible. They had to play number 1 Notre Dame November 1989. And they got crushed to Notre Dame, 59-6. Although Lou Holtz said that he basically asked his team to take it easy on SMU. However, several weeks later, the Mustangs would go into Houston to face the Cougars and get crushed 95-21. And I kid you not, that was the score, 95-21. Andre Ware threw 6 touchdown passes against SMU in the first half, and then passed it off to David Klingler, who got 4 more in the second half with the game long out of reach. So 10 touchdown passes. SMU was understandably pissed and all that. Because why would Houston run up the score on them? All that. But anyway, yeah. But it didn't just affect SMU to the core. It affected the conference. Southwest Conference suffered greatly. It had a dubious reputation with a number of NCAA violations of its member school. And the discovery of the scandal was a blow which the conference never recovered. And basically, it ruined everyone. Only 3 of the 9 members were never on probation. Baylor, Rice, and guess who? Arkansas. Never had a year of probation in the 1980s in the Southwest Conference. They never did. Arkansas was clean. But Arkansas also felt like they needed to leave the Southwest Conference, not because of the scandals, but because they were the only non-Texas school in the Southwest Conference. They left and went to the Southeastern Conference in the 91 season. Southwest Conference started to dissolve. The Big 8 wanted to expand its membership and got to look at the Southwestern Conference. The Big 8 invited Texas, Texas A&M, Baylor, and Texas Tech to join the conference in 96, which would make it the Big 12. SMU was offered an invite to the Western Athletic Conference alongside Rice and Texas Christian. But later on, SMU moved with Rice and UTEP, Texas to Conference USA, and was reunited with Houston, who was a charter member of the Conference USA after the SWC disbanded. And SMU plays at the American Athletic Conference. So basically, the SMU finally made a bowl appearance in 2009. For the first time since 1984. They won the Hawaii Bowl against Nevada. They faced the Army in the Armed Forces Bowl, which actually was a homecoming because their stadium, SMU Stadium, was home to the Armed Forces Bowl, but they lost 16-14. SMU was given a chance to play at the Compass Bowl in Birmingham and played Pitt, and actually beat Pitt 28-6, so that's huge. The Mustangs would not move on to the national rankings until they hit number 24, September 29, 2019. So yeah, the death penalty was huge and all that. Pony Exce was fantastic. It was the 13th and last of the original series of 30 for 30. So basically, yeah, that was huge. Patrick Duffy, who starred in Dallas, he was the guy who narrated the documentary. There was a lot of things and all that. So yeah, it was amazing. I like that. It was pretty much a fantastic time. But yeah, it's a great documentary. You better. I hope you watch it. I hope you find access to Pony Exce because it is great. It's a great NCAA football documentary alongside, the U. They did two separate documentaries on the University of Miami programs in the 80s and 90s, and then the second part was the 2000s with all those scandals. College football can be fun to watch with a documentary. I hope you like it. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.